From the stunning colours and gorgeous finishes to improved visual experiences, the new iPad 10 has a lot in store for users. In this video, we discuss everything you need to know about the iPad 10 and its redesign, the design, the specs and the display. And that said, let's get right into it. iPad 10th generation design. Most people expected that the iPad would be redesigned to look more like the older iPads. The iPad has been updated so that it no longer has use of a home button. There are also more brightly coloured cases available, and these cases can be found on the iPad Air as well. Even though the home button is no longer there, Touch ID can still be used. Touch ID is now on the top of the iPad, next to the power button, again, just like on the iPad Air and iPad mini. The switch from the Lightning connector to the USB-C connector will be finished with the iPad in 2022, which will also be the last iPad to use the Lightning connector before the EU requires that all new products have USB-C by 2024. The display. The big news here is that the screen on the new iPad is a little bit bigger than the screen on the old iPad. It went from 10.2 inches to 10.9 inches because the bezels are thinner and there is no longer a home button. To keep the new iPad familiar with old users, it has remained with the 264 ppi density of the old iPad, however, with a higher resolution of 2360 x 1640 display. Aside from getting bigger, the new iPad screen hasn't changed much. You still get an IPS screen with a True Tone LED backlighting and a maximum brightness of 500 nits, but that's not a bad thing. Apple is known for making great displays, so even though the lack of big changes to the iPad's display might raise a few eyebrows, it is still likely to look great. An upgrade to the mini LED screen, like the one on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, is probably not possible for a basic tablet. This is great news, and not just because the screen is a lot bigger than it used to be. The new display is a liquid retina, just like the ones on the 11-inch displays on the iPad Pro, iPad Air and iPad mini. The display on the regular iPad is still not completely laminated. This has always been a letdown for us because it leaves a noticeable gap between the glass and the touchscreen. While the displays on the other iPad models do not have this gap, it doesn't have an anti-reflective coating like the other iPads do, as in the case with all of them. The new specs. It's been a while since Apple first came out with their A14 processor. By using the A14 instead of the A15 processor found in the iPad mini, Apple makes it clear that this iPad will be the least expensive model they can make. But this doesn't mean that the A14 won't be powerful, and it is almost certain that it will be better than the iPad's last processor. It's interesting to see how Apple has improved the processing power of each iPad model over the years, starting with the A14 in the first iPad, and moving on to the A15 into the iPad mini, the M1 in the iPad Air, and finally the M2 in the iPad Pro. With all of their products, Apple could not have done a better job of setting themselves apart from the competition. The A14 Bionic chip is replaced with the S9.7 chip as the main piece of technology in the new iPad. Regarding the storage capacity, they should be the same as in the generation that is in use now, 64GB and 256GB. The camera. Apple's landscape ultra-wide front camera has not changed in any way since it has been made. Both the resolution, which stays at 12 megapixels, and the aperture, which it stayed at 2.4, have not changed either. However, Apple says that the new camera field of view covers 122 degrees. With the center stage feature, this makes it possible for the device to follow a caller as they move across the screen. Again, center stage was available from the previous generations. People thought that the back-facing cameras would be moved to the top and bottom of the device, even though rumours kept saying that Apple would use a vertical camera array like the one on the iPhone X. No, the iPad still only has one camera built in, unlike the iPad Pro, which has a wide and ultra-wide camera. On the other hand, the back camera's resolution has gone from 8 megapixels to 12 megapixels. This model's aperture is f/1.8, which is much bigger than the iPad's 9.7's aperture, which is f/2.4. This should make it possible to take better pictures even when there isn't much light. The old model of the camera doesn't have an LED flash like the new one. Smart HDR3 has only recently become popular in the photographic industry. You can also record 4K video at 24, 25, 30 or 60 frames per second, and up to 30 frames per second can use extended dynamic range. Lastly, 4K video can be played back at any of these frame rates. Slow motion video can be shot at either 1080p at 120 frames per second or 240 frames per second. In the past, 720p at 120 frames per second was the highest resolution that could be achieved. Connectivity. After the 9th generation iPad came out, Apple stopped making iPads with the Lightning port. Apple added the USB-C port to the iPad Pro in 2018, the iPad Air in 2020, and the iPad Mini in 2021. It is important for the company to finish the switch and make things easier for iPad users. In 2022, iPads will get the USB-C port instead of the Lightning port they have now. Apple has to switch from the Lightning to USB-C for the next iPad because of a new rule in the European Union that says that it must be used on mobile devices. Almost every iPhone and iPad that Apple sells right now supports 5G. The cellular versions of the 9th generation iPad, on the other hand, can only connect to LTE networks. The 10th generation iPad will join the more expensive iPads because it also supports faster 5G networks. The last iPad with 5G connectivity is the new one at the end of the line. The iPhone 14 and the iPad Pro, which both use mmWave technology, are not supported. However, devices that operate below 6 GHz are. The previous Wi-Fi standard, called 802.11ac, has been improved to the new Wi-Fi 6 standard. The audio. Apple has added something new that the company calls Landscape 2 speaker audio. The cameras are the main thing that these stereo microphones are made for. It looks like Apple finally got rid of the 3.5mm headphone jack on the iPad. In 2018, Apple stopped making iPads from the 9th generation with a jack for headphones or speakers. The software. iPad 2022 may debut with iPadOS 15, but gets a speedy update to iPadOS 16 soon after its release. However, iPadOS 16 is expected to debut alongside the 2022 iPad's release. While we had hoped to see the debut of iPadOS 16 in September or October, Apple has stated that the rollout of the software update will now occur later in the year. The price. For the last few generations, the starting price of an iPad in the US has been $329, and we didn't think that would change anytime soon. Apple, on the other hand, has decided to keep selling the older iPads from the 9th generation at a lower price while putting out a new iPad which costs $449, which, as you can tell, is a lot more. That change was totally out of the blue, and we had no way of knowing it was coming. The price of the iPad of the 10th generation starts at £449 in the UK, which was also expected. The colours. You now have a choice of blue, pink, yellow or silver. This is a big change from the older models, like the 9th generation model, which only came in silver or space grey. When can you get your hands on the new iPad 10? As of the release of this video, you can pre-order the iPad 2022, and the company has said that sales will start on Wednesday, October 26th. If you go to an Apple store and use the Apple Store app, you can place an order with Apple for a brand new iPad. So, thank you very much for watching. What are your expectations for the new iPad 10? Do you like the way that it looks? Please let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video if you found it helpful, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any updates from our channel. And again, thank you very much for watching.